hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you. How's it, Bobby? How are you, man?
Excellent. Well, and you, Chad?
Lekker, man. I've got my second session up here on the tablet, just in case I hit a blue screen error, which happens every now and again. So that way I won't lose the Zoom connection there.
Excellent.
All right, good stuff, man. The reason I suggested we get up on Zoom and have a chat is because of the fact that you've raised this question about the communications side.
Yes.
And I need to explain to you where my background comes from in order for you to understand when I make statements like don't be stupid or be stupid, you'll know why and understand that I'm not being personal or full of shit. Also,
Yes,
I'm not squint. I got two screens, and in the middle, I've got a teleprompter. So if I look at my teleprompter, then you got me eyeball to eyeball. But I've got your video up on the left-hand screen, yes. Of course, now it looks like I'm looking sideways. All right. With specific reference to the radio communication side, I've got almost 40 years of background in emergency radio communications as a whole. I originally started off with EMCOM capabilities and functionality and all the rest of it at a very young age. And that is actually, let's see, it's longer than 40 years then, at the young age of 13, when I joined the old CB club of Radio Emergency Associated Citizens teams.
Yes.
I ran accidents and all kinds of other good things with REACT for the better part of 6 years. Even though I'd gone to the Air Force in the interim and all the rest of it. But then when I moved on to the Red Cross, I was actually responsible for setting up the two-way radio network for Southern Transvaal region, where we had 40 community organizers, 14 ambulances, 6 response vehicles, a couple of logistical vehicles and private vehicles, all up on a 3-repeater network throughout Joburg. So we had communications in Carletonville, or repeaters up in Carletonville, Joburg, and Heidelberg, and had a very good coverage in that area. However, subsequent to that, I formed a company called EMCOM Pty Limited. And EMCOM Pty Limited, and I think what I must do is try and get it up on screen and just share it on screen, purely because of the fact that this is a video recording, and you have got other team members, etc., that will, in actual fact, need the record so that you can have an overall discussion with them. So then, let me just myself organized here quickly and see where are we at, and get you into a screen share, and then hope to God that the bloody PC doesn't die on me, which is why I'm going to put you on screen 1. Okay, so I need to move that over. All right, so here's my main company screen. And from this, you that the whole concept behind EMCOM Pty Limited is to bridge the radio communications gap between communities and services. And the reason that I put specific emphasis on that was really and truly at the end of the day as a result of disaster relief CERT. Looking at what we are doing from a disaster relief CERT perspective, CERT is not a first responder organization. Our entire purpose and goal as CERT, or Community Emergency Response Teams, is clearly laid out within our Memorandum of Incorporation, which is to prepare volunteers to provide disaster relief and assistance, specifically in times of disaster. So no disaster CERT doesn't. However, due to the 40-odd years of EMS disaster management background and training and everything else, I understand that there is a major break in communications between services, especially when we start looking at the radio spectrum frequency regulations, which was last updated in 2015 by ICASA. Every little entity has to apply for their own radio spectrum license in order to operate within the radio field. That is an expensive exercise. Radio equipment can also be expensive. So every single person has ultimately decided to follow what's called the PTT route, or the push to talk. There are multiple services where you can install an app on a cell phone.
Yes.
And then you pay like 60 Rand or 70 Rand a month, and you can, have your own little group come together and do whatever the case might be, and. It's great. It's a brilliant concept. It's actually what's considered voice over IP. That's all. It's not a radio network. Even though it is partially working on what's considered the cell phone networks by default are designed to operate very short distances. And this is why we have cell phone network towers scattered throughout the country in the multitudes, which makes it expensive to keep batteries going, solar systems going, and keep them secure. So when we've got one, electrical power, which we know Eskom's not giving us, and number two, cell phone networks are up and operational, which we know are failing. And then number three, internet connectivity is up and operational, which we know is also currently failing. Then the PTT, or the voice over IP network, works extremely well. There's no doubt about it. Let me just acknowledge him here quickly. ZS6 BRB, ZS6 OPS. You are in fact with very low down there, Barry, and with a lot of rain on your signal. Unfortunately, I am currently in a meeting, so I'm not going to come back. ZS6 BRB, ZS6 OPS out. Okay, so while we've got internet connectivity, electricity, and cell phone networks working, PTT is brilliant. There's no doubt about it. My passion, my background as a paramedic, as a person who was trained by the International Committee of the Red Cross in disaster relief and management, knows and understands all too well the need for communications, especially between long distance locations, for example. The days of having, let's say, a security company or police station like Boyson's police station, they would deal with a very small area and they could get away with a very small communication network. Those days are gone, because then everything moved over to the 10111 center in Brixton that had to cover virtually the whole of the city of Johannesburg. Now that communication capability became much broader. And in your particular instance, monitoring what you guys are doing on the various groups, PTT, or voice over IP, is a tool in the toolbox and nothing more. I want to make this statement, and I'm not being harsh. I wouldn't recommend it for your type of service at all, under any circumstances as first responders. Because people are losing their lives at the end of the day. Calls come through extremely late. As a paramedic, we know that within 3 minutes of blood loss or lack of blood flow to the brain, a person is considered clinically dead. Not biologically dead, clinically dead. And if the cell phone network or the PTT network is going to delay the dispatching of EMS, emergency management services, not medical services, management services. That's both fire and ambulance services. Then we actually putting our public at risk of becoming clinically dead. And that is something that I really am beginning to stress, and I'm raising it on the disaster management levels. You see, it's become a very cheap option to go PTT. When the system works, I recommend it with the greatest of pleasure. Go for it, including Zello. I use on an annual basis to monitor what's actually happening in the US during hurricane season. And I monitor all of those relief operations, Florida Search and Rescue, Cajun Navy, and anybody else that comes up on the particular group for that particular hurricane. It works until suddenly you'll get a message that comes through and says, guys, please, I wonder where this comes from. Guys, can you please double check that you have actually got a connection to Zello, because for some reason you get disconnected and you think you're sending the message out. Meantime, we are only getting the messages an hour later because your signal has dropped or because Zello is disconnected or whatever the case might be. This is the type of thing you are experiencing on your Zello network. You're not the only one.
Yes.
When we've got official search and rescue organizations in the United States that deal with disasters that we cannot even dream of having the same problem, you must know we'll have that problem here as well. For the benefit of your organization, and I'm speaking more specifically from the MCOM PDY Limited perspective, I'm going to share some documents with you, share them amongst your executive members for discussion. This recording I will make available to you on a similar channel. Under the MCOM PDY Limited channel, it will also form part of promoting the Boksburg 911 groups and everything else. Even though I might be disaster relief cert, I personally recommend that communities get involved with their local organizations such as yourself. So from the YouTube channel, feel free to share it far and wide. When you look at PTT, I can supply equipment, or you can get equipment through whomever or whatever the case might be. It does work when we've got electricity, cell phones, internet, etc. But outside of that, my personal recommendation as a paramedic, or what would have been termed a paramedic in the day, I will not place my life on it. And if somebody is going to walk into my property with a PTT radio and say that they can help me, I'm going to tell them to take a hike because tomorrow they could in actual fact be the cause of my death. That's on a personal level. On a professional level, we need to start going back to basics. Now, based on the gray hair that you got, very similar to mine when I let it grow, you will understand the old civil defense of Charlie Delta days of how radio networks were set up for emergency communications purposes. You'll also understand how a lot of people came together and why CB radio in the 80s in particular was so popular, because it was an easy accessible solution to radio communications. Unfortunately, today, these things do not apply. Radio equipment has become rather expensive due to our rand-dollar exchange rate. However, it's still cheaper than a cell phone. It's more robust than a cell phone. And in all honesty, through a network like I have put together in terms of MCOM, by bridging the communications gap between communities and services, we do have a solution. Now, I want to make the following statement. Or through the initiative that has been launched in the last 4 years, called a Community Emergency Radio Network. The concept is to have the residential areas themselves buy into a simplex radio communication capability, whereby they can communicate with each other, with base stations. They structure it, they run it. All I do is provide the hardware and, of course, the licensing and the guidance. Then from that aspect, within the communities themselves, through organizations such as yours, Neighborhood Watchers, Block Watchers, CPF, etc., the same communities can in actual fact ensure that there are radio equipment capabilities available for first responders, patrollers, etc., etc. Working on the digital network, it does in actual fact give a lot of open additional capabilities, which you won't actually see per se in terms of a PTT network. A PTT network will be a closed network specifically for your group. If you want to bring somebody else on, they have to get access to literally your entire network as well. Through digital mobile radio, that there does in actual fact fall away and it becomes a totally different aspect altogether. So in short, for now, I can go on for the next 2 hours here. What I'd like to suggest is have a look at the videos that I have already produced.
Okay.
Documentation that I've already produced and updated and put out there for the benefit of communities as a whole. Now, just remember this. I'm concentrating on the community. Organizations themselves get plugged into that community aspect. So the pyramid, as one would expect everything from top down, this is now fed from the bottom up, which is a much broader base at the bottom than it is at the top. So as 911, a group, an organization, I believe you said you were a non-profit company, you plug in to the network and ask the community to, in actual fact, provide radio equipment for you, for your patrollers. And again, this network can be developed in 2 different areas. It can be a simplex network, which, depending on where your base stations are, can be pretty wide in area coverage, or it could be very small if you are utilizing handhelds. But there's more info in the documents and the video on that. Now, sites that we can utilize out on the East Rand, and we can bring up everything on the East Rand. However, I am going to give you an idea shortly when I stop sharing the screen as to what my setup looks like here. And for those of you that watch the video, I'm actually based on the corner, you can Google it, on the corner of Ondekkers Road and Christian de Wet Road in Constantia Kloof, Roodepoort. I'm literally 1 block away from Florida Park Fire Station, which is the Cogems Fire Training Center. Why is my location so important? Through a decent base installation, I speak to people on Simplex in Springs, Nigel, virtually through to Potch. I got mine dumps in the way. And of course, all the way through to Pretoria, Centurion, and Rustenburg. I got a couple of mountains in the way as well. That just gives you the idea of the capability that we have on 2-way radio. Why is it important to look at 2-way radio on a simplex? Quite simply, it actually works out cheaper than cell phone networks and PTT networks. No data and no airtime is required. A simple solution through MCOM is an annual payment, which is a lot cheaper than a cell phone contract. If you were to utilize the repeater networks, then of course, one has to consider there are monthly fees, and it does escalate the pricing a bit. However, it still gives you a better communication capability when power fails, cell phone networks fails, and internet connections fail. So no Wi-Fi, no fiber, no nothing. You've got something to fall back on, i.e. back to basics on simple RF. From a emergency response network, a radio network concept, I'm also found not to put repeater access as a primary form of communication. Now, a lot of people are saying to me, but you're in this business where you provide repeater access on a commercial basis. Yes, that's on a commercial basis. That is so that you can speak to your truck driver who's driving around Joburg or the East End or whatever, find out why he's late. And of course, don't forget to pass on the message that his wife wants him to pick up bread on the way home. That's fine. From an emergency communications perspective, that's stupid. And any person who believes that that's the only way to go and the right way to go, I say this to you. No, I've got a better idea. I'll recommend a couple of doctors having been in the medical game, because you might need to have your head red, not painted red, but physically picked out. Why? I'm going to give you two classical examples. The Knysna fires of 2017 saw a total breakdown in communications around Knysna and George area. And if you don't believe me, I'll share the link as well, that you guys can have a look at it, and you can actually read or listen to the official report back, where even fire services acknowledged this failover, whereby one of the ISPs requested fire department to escort them in order for them to go and get a backup cell phone network repeater up and operational. At one point in that particular video, it was stated that we did not know that we had fire crews on the other side of the firewall. And this is why residents were evacuated from the beach and not the ordinary evacuation planned routes. So during the fire down in Knysna, communication capabilities went out the window, which included the high site repeater networks, because lost batteries, solar panels probably melted. Who knows? I don't know. I'm making an assumption. But then let's go back to the KZN floods of year before last, 2021, or last year. Last year. Same thing. There was infrastructure damage to high site. The protest action, the rioting of 2021 in KZN, 400 cell phone networks were damaged. 2 commercial community-based radio stations were vandalized and had equipment stolen. Repeater high sites become a target during times of unrest. Now, when I look at organizations such as yourselves, neighborhood watchers, block watchers, CPFs, emergency medical services, fire services, emergency management services as a whole, we will have a problem if those towers are taken out, because a lot of communication capability will fall and fail and just stop working. And people are not going to be able to speak to each other or to dispatch. And that's where the problem comes in. And I want us to go back to basics on a simplex solution. And I would like to end this initial presentation with you, Bobby, on that note. Because that being said, look at the videos and the training videos that have already been produced by me to get a deeper insight into where our problems lie before you consider anything else. So I'm going to end the sharing of the screen. And I just want to give you guys an idea of basically what my setup looks like here at the moment. So I'm not too sure which camera is going to come up first. So let's just have a look and see. Okay, that one is no longer there. I've unplugged that one, and that one might be my wide angle. But in order to show you, I need to turn off my background. There we go. Here's the wide angle shot of my office. I've got a camera sitting up on the other side of my desk, about 3 meters away. That side of the desk is in actual fact a laboratory, not only electronics or on the electrical side, but more on the IT side. During times of emergencies, this emergency operations center, all of that gets swept into a big cardboard box, and the additional radio equipment is put into play there. Then on this side, Joe, as you can see, I've got the 2 screens and the teleprompter and the sound desk and audio equipment and everything else. And then I've got a full-blown radio communications rack here. In this particular rack, there's 6 radios that are currently operational. Not only the community emergency response team radio network, the community emergency radio, the community emergency radio network is also there. And of course, between that side and this side of it, the amateur radio network is up and operational. I'll switch over. I've got 2 other cameras that might give you a little bit of a better view. All right. Sorry, no, this one.
Recorded message. Press 1 to re-record the message. Press 2 to disconnect the call. Hang up.
So
no problem.
okay.
All right. So basically, the other camera, for some reason, doesn't seem to have come up. It would have just given a different angle on the other side. I think the driver has decided it's going to blow itself up. So that's basically my setup. I run a full-blown EOC on the emergency radio comm side. And yeah, being a radio amateur as well, just, you know, opens up our doors to additional communication capabilities and all kinds of other stuff. So that being said, I'm actually going to stop the recording. Then Bobby, you and I can just have an off-book chat in case there's something you wanted to add there. But just before I do that, are there any questions related specifically to the radio communication side, which you feel might be relevant to the viewers of this presentation? Perhaps we can just tackle that one quickly. Have you got anything you want to ask or address?
Okay, Chad, I'm just going to give you a background why we were looking at the 2-way radios. What happens is when you get to a scene, we do scene safety where we secure the scene and guide traffic and control traffic. And your paramedics or your, not your paramedics, your first responders, your medical responders are busy with patients. So you can't get your cell phone to either type or listen to messages. But the 2-way radio clips to your jacket or to your vest, and it would have been easier to communicate amongst us. So even the traffic controllers, you don't even see your cell phone while you're busy. But having a radio clip to your collar will make it much easier to communicate and send and receive messages to your colleagues on scene and also to your colleagues at home that are not on scene. So should you require any assistance, they can dispatch and arrange for you while you're on scene. So that was the basic need. Also, when patrolling is to communicate between us, because we do operational patrols with SAPs on a weekend, and it's just in terms for us to speak to each other and communicate with each other. That's what we needed it for. Now, cost was a big factor, and then also practicality in terms of distance and line of sight was a problem. So you know what we need now. I think you can then respond on our needs from there.
Bobby, yeah, no, absolutely. Look, line of sight. I'm glad you brought that up. Line of sight always becomes a problem. And people say, yeah, but cell phone networks, they just work. No, they actually don't just work, because a cell phone network, you got a tower literally within 500 meters of you in various directions. And then 500, that's why it's called cell. It's a cell. It just covers a very small area. And at the frequencies that these phones work, you know, if you look at your cell phone, you're probably only putting out about 100 milliwatts on a cell phone. Otherwise, your battery would last 10 minutes and it would be dead. Handheld radios will give you a 5-watt power output. Now, there's a couple of things that can be done, and I know that as an organization, cost is a problem. So from myself as a company and a director of a disaster relief NGO, my recommendation to you as an organization is for your community to buy in. And for them, you know, I 3 months ago, 4 months ago, before our rand dollar went the opposite way, I actually put out in some of the communities, look, for every X amount of radios that are supplied, MCOM will donate 2 handhelds that can be used by the patrollers. Now, if we take this a step further and we say, okay, look, guys, here's the cost price on this particular radio, and then you got different levels of radio. You know, you got a network running, and is it safe and secure? Well, the digital, firstly, is a lot safer than your normal analog. So our guys that can run off to the China mall and go buy those cheap things, you know, I call them cheap Chinese shit. Oh, sorry, wait, maybe this is to be a child-friendly video. A CCS, cheap Chinese superstar radios. Then, you know, everybody can hear what you're doing. So Yankee 5, please proceed to this location. Oh dear, there's nothing here. Because at that location, some oak's got the same radio and he's listened to it and he knows he needs to move off. So the digital side, very different ball game. Nobody can listen to it unless you got the radio. Okay. So entrance level radio is cheaper. But what happens if it gets lost or stolen and gets into the wrong hands? We're back in the same boat. But when we start looking at the higher costing equipment, there's kill, stun, disable, enable functionality that can all be put in play. And you can disable a particular radio. In addition to that, through the DMR network, I provide both Hytera and Motorola. I prefer to go with Motorola because I get the same, if not better quality than I do on a Motorola, but I get additional functionality like the emergency button. So Bobby, you and your administrators might have a base station. I call them emergency operation centers. There are additional cost implications to it, but the community can subscribe to it. That information can be sent through to you if you've got a 24-hour control room, or I'd have to set up a 24-hour control room, and just one button press, and on screen you can get an identity number and it tells us exactly who that person is, depending on how we save it to a contact list. Then when you're talking about scene safety and everything else, absolutely, listen, having run response vehicles and been on the road for the better part of 30 years, I fully appreciate and understand where you guys are coming from. I recently attended a aeronautical search and rescue seminar, and one of the speakers there was saying, you know, what you need to understand is this guy takes a cell phone, it's a plane crash, and he's landed up in a river, and he grabs his cell phone, and now he's looking for a signal, and he's trying to do whatever with the cell phone, but his fingers are wet. Cell phone doesn't work. Your paramedics on the side of the road, they can't get the cell phone out. Your responders doing scene safety, well, there's no signal in some areas, especially if you're out in the bush. And that is exactly where the handheld, and I was looking for my handheld. I think I've left, well, I've normally got 3 of them here, but I've scattered them up all around the house at the moment. Your handheld radio, we can supply external microphones, so you can have a PTT American style here on top of your jacket, or you can have a PTT depending on which headset is available, where you've got a little PTT on your finger and you've got a complete discrete microphone earpiece to it. And there's very, very many ways to skin the cat. Again, and I think this is crucial based on what Bobby has said. I am not going to speak now to Boksburg 911 or any neighborhood watch security company, block watch, CPF or otherwise. No organization. This word is not to you. This word is to the residential areas that these organizations serve. And to each and every single one of you as residents within your areas, you need to ask yourself the following question. When this cell phone network dies, when this electrical grid dies, when this internet connection dies, how are you going to call for help from the organizations that I am not talking to or directing this statement to? I'm taking all of those guys, I'm putting you on the side here, because that's exactly where you're going to be. You, the resident, will have no means of calling for help from these guys on the side, like you are currently accustomed to on your WhatsApp groups. It's going to fall away. And you need to ask yourself the following question. How do you as an individual call Bobby as an administrator on the sideline when there is no communications available? How are you going to call for help for your wife, for your daughter, for your children, for your auntie, your uncle, or that 97-year-old mother of yours? How are you going to call for help when your next door neighbor's house is burning down? Nobody can get hold of these people. And you think I'm joking? Just have a good look around you. In the last 6 months, the East Rand in particular has been subjected to 2 major gas incidents, hazardous chemical events that has claimed the lives now of almost 60 people. This time last year, each and every single one of you was sitting there at the beginning of load shedding, not even being aware that this could happen. Your mother has a heart attack. How are you going to call for help? It is up to you as a resident in each and every single property to get the community emergency radio network going. And even if you contribute, think of it this way. I haven't had a look at what the actual statistics look like, for example, of the Boksburg area. And I think maybe that's exactly what I should do for the benefit of this video. I will share the screen. Give me a minute. I am going to send it over. And I would like you as the resident, I'm not talking to security companies, neighborhood watchers, patrollers, Boksburg 911. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to you, the resident. And I need you to understand the following. Ekaleni. There we go. Wait a minute. Let's just go back on that one. Population of 3.1 million. That's how many people you have in that area. If we drill down on this one and we start looking at specific areas, let's just take our Boksburg area. Bobby, just give me a thumbs up. You can see the screen. Oh, wait, I got it on the other one. Yes, you can see the screen. Okay. Census 2011. Some chappie drew all this data and produced these excellent statistics. Sure, there might be a 5% variance between 2011 and 2023, but this gives a good indication of what you the public, are dealing with. Here we have a population of 260,000 people just in the Boksburg area alone. You further have 87,000 households, covering 162 square kilometers of area. If you are like the other areas that I've currently been working in, are you a privileged community that thinks that nothing is going to happen? I got news for you. I've just done a survey and I'm going to share the document with Bobby. Bobby, I'd like you to keep it on a executive level for the time being. It's to give an indication of where I'm coming from. Because if that trend is happening here in Boksburg, look at that area, ladies and gentlemen. That's an extremely large area. And it's virtually impossible to cover that area from a radio communications perspective with just one repeater. You need failover, you need redundancy, and then it becomes expensive. And what I'm trying to bring forward at this moment in time, you as a community, as a household, need to be able to speak to your next door neighbor who might be able to speak to somebody 4 blocks away, and through a relay process, get a message through to Bobby's team in order for them to get a message again through a relay network into the security team in times of emergencies. Not just security, medical, fire, or any other incident whereby loss of life could be expected. And if this network, made up by you, the individual, saves one life, then the network has paid for itself. That's it, bottom line. Whichever way you look at it. If you can save the life of your 3-year-old child that's just fallen in the pool by being able to call for help through a relay system without the reliance on cell phone networks, internet connections, or electricity. By the way, all the radio equipment I supply can be charged via solar panels and regulators, battery backups, etc., etc. I will share the documentation with Bobby. Bobby, you can send it out. I want South Africa to realize that I am very serious about saving lives. But if we are going to be stupid and ignorant, and I don't believe in calling a spade a shovel, we are going to kill our next door neighbor. Out of, what did I say the population of Boksburg was? 260,000 people. Currently, in an area that I've just done an assessment, I estimate that 80% of our population here will die as a result of a natural disaster. Oh yes, sorry, I forgot about that. You guys have just experienced this major earthquake now in the last month, of which we've had 4 or 5 others subsequent to that. These disasters are happening. These problems are definitely coming about. You guys are looking at it as first responders, the security teams, the patrollers, etc., at their normal day-to-day activities. But you need to take this a step further, people, and look at that bigger disaster like an earthquake, no electricity, no cell phone. How do you call for help? You buy a radio, you speak to your next door neighbor, you get him to buy a radio and let everybody in that area buy radios and get up. The more radios that come up, the cheaper we can make this overall, because there are cost implications. There are licensing implications. There's taxes and everything else that have to be paid. This is, from my side, it's a business. From your side, it's got to be seen as an investment in your safety and your health, not just your security. You got to look at your safety and your health and your welfare. And through purchasing, if you turn around and say, look, Bobby, I tell you what, as a non-profit company, I'll donate 100 Rand towards radio equipment, take 260,000 houses. Just a very simple, quick calculation here to give you an idea. 260,000 houses. Get 300,000 of those up, all paying 100 Rand contribution to Bobby's team. Bobby can put every single one of his patrollers on a radio network. And guess what? Bobby might not even be able to talk. Yeah, where's this? I don't know the area that well. So just please understand. Oh, Tambo International Airport at the top and something here at the bottom, other side of Alberton. Okay, towards Vosloorus. Bobby might not be able to speak to Vosloorus directly, but who cares? The people down here in Vosloorus can, or this area just to the east of Vosloorus can in actual fact be able to communicate. And if you guys have got 10 patrol vehicles, whether they are security, ambulance services like we've done on this side. I got radio equipment in volunteer ambulance and medical services. I got radio equipment currently within security industry, all on the same network. I got radios out in the community. I got radios out in the volunteer firefighting teams. That's the capability that you, the individual, I'm not talking to the security companies yet. I'm not talking to the volunteer organizations or neighborhood watchers, CPFs. I'm talking to you, the individual resident of Boksburg. This will only work when you get up and do something about it. Otherwise, now I'm going to speak to you as the Director of Disaster Relief CERT. And for those of you that don't know, I was trained by the International Committee of the Red Cross in disaster relief and management. I spent almost 20 years working with and volunteering with Red Cross in my younger days. Today, I give back. I train you, I teach you, I help others. That's how I'm giving back what I learned. But if you are not, as a community member, are not going to stand up and do something for your community, never mind your own family. If you can't start with your family, you can't do it for your community. I tell you what, you are part of the problem, and you will be the result of people losing their lives. And that's a very harsh thing to say, and I understand that. But as the Director of Disaster Relief CERT, my message is simple. Get your communications together, get yourself prepared, train yourself to be able to look after your family first and foremost. And if your family is fine, help your next door neighbor. These are tough financial times. 300,000 houses, even a 10 Rand donation to an organization such as Boksburg 911, or Gift to the Givers, or SA Red Cross, or Disaster Relief CERT. Yes, we also need donations because we are looking at training volunteers. Who are the volunteers? It's you, the resident. If you understand the concept of disaster area damage assessments, you're in a better position to support your teams, such as Boksburg 911, your local security companies, etc. That is the message I want to bring across for the benefit of the Boksburg community, but not only the Boksburg community. I will share this video publicly on the MCOM PDY Limited's YouTube channel. And in the last year, I've started to work different areas. I might not address people directly in Boksburg, but people in Cape Town are watching the videos of what's going on here in certain areas of the West Rand Roodepoort. And that is why, from a disaster relief CERT perspective, if you don't want to volunteer with Boksburg 911 because they're dealing with all the dangerous stuff, that's fine. Gift to the Givers needs help. SA Red Cross needs help. You might not want to go to Canine Search and Rescue or SARSA. Disaster relief needs help. We need volunteers that can come together and say, hey, listen here, those patrollers that have gone out during this very big incident, they've been out in that field for 3 or 4 days. We need people to get together and go and deliver samis or take water or take refreshments. Or better still, listen, guys, we need to pick up medicaments or medical equipment from this area. Maybe it's out on the West Rand. We need to be able to get volunteers that are going to support the teams such as Boksburg 911. That's what we are here for. In a supportive role, in a leadership role, to prepare you to deal with disaster. What these guys from Boksburg 911 are doing as first responders, they're dealing with the little mini disasters that are currently happening. This is their training. That big one, they need further training and they need your help. And on that note, I want to end this video. I'm going to turn off my screen sharing so that I can address you directly, even though I got the green screen up without all the the beach and everything to every resident. Thank you for taking the time. Please share the link as far and wide as possible, and definitely support your organizations in your area. And don't think I'm being, rude. I'm being direct. I'm being straight, open, and honest with you. You have to save your life and the life of your neighbor and your community. Support these guys. Don't just sit back. On that note, I'm going to end the recording. Bobby, is there anything you wanted to add at this point, or shall we end it and then you and I will go private for a bit?
I think in the chat, there's another question I have that I'll ask you once we private.
Okay, good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Chad Milam. I am the Director of Disaster Relief CERT. On the video, I'll probably put the link up there. I'll also ask Bobby to give me a link and see if I can put it up on the video that whoever within the community or the viewers see this particular presentation, you can refer back to it. So it'll be available in a couple of days. On that note, I bid you farewell and have a good one. Thank you very much.